Hello everyone. Last episode, 32nd episode of Road to Super Bowl, your hopefully soon to be your favorite podcast, especially in the off season, for you to cover up what you might have missed, or maybe to even learn something new about either one of your favorite team, or the team that you hate, or your rivals within the division, or you just are genuinely interested in the NFL. Here is the time, here is the place to learn about it. So what do we do in here? We try to give you rather complex look at what GM, aka general managers, are trying to do in terms of their job within the franchise, within the organization, within the club. No matter what you try to spell it out, we try to not only look at the team from the perspective of a player. We like this guy, we don't like this guy, he's good, he's bad. No, obviously, that's part of it. You have to know if a guy is good, bad, if he has potential or not, in order to address his contract situation, but it gets much more deeper. You need to know if his contract situation actually works for you right now, if he's worth restructuring, if he's worth giving a new contract, how his peak window coexists with your window in terms of trying to win a Super Bowl, etc., etc. That's pretty much what we try to give you and take you behind the scenes in a way. We also try to address the thing that it's kind of hard to keep track on how the player actually looks like. So we've designed player cards specifically for this series, so you get to know about 30 to 40 players that either were on the roster for the particular team and were contributors, or have a chance to be contributors this season. That's what we do in the part called Rundown. Before that, we start by taking a look at this team last season. So what they've done in 2023. Then, if it's like a huge case for the team, we take a look at free agency, or we do it through the rundown when we talk about players within their tiers in terms of we try to address weaponry, which is quarterbacks, tight ends, running backs, and wide receivers. Offensive line, guards, centers, and tackles. D-line also includes linebackers. Secondary contains cornerbacks and safeties. And with coaches, we also take a look at special teams, namely punters and kickers. I'm not gonna pretend I am some special guru on special teams, so that's just enough. I only have 3 tiers on this group. It's like you win the game because of them, they might lose you a game, and something in the middle, right? That's my kind of 3 groups for punters and kickers. Sorry, but also I had some fun that was added to it, because some of the punters specifically are kind of lookalikes. You've seen it with episodes about Bills and also with someone else, which I cannot remember right now. Also, after that, we talk about what the next 3 years should look like for this team, when it's the time to push for Super Bowl, if they have that time, or is it the whole day, kind of how open is their window of opportunity to try to win Super Bowl. And also, to kind of end things, we take a look at some of the mock drafts that I've made for this team, why I addressed them the way I did, and just with that we will end. So, this is the last episode. Don't be sad. We will definitely come back to this series, whether it's going to be post-draft, where we will try to add maybe 1 or 2 years of analysis here, because with draft priorities, it could be much more clear what the window looks like, what the team is actually trying to do. Are they rebuilding within a rebuild? Are they much more about building for the future? Or did they brought guys that maybe don't have the highest upside but have really good floor, so they are trying to win now? Or if that's not the case, there could be a second version of this during training camps, when we learn much more about who actually earned the job. We would probably take more closer look at those edge guys, which are not discussed that much with this series. So that could be something we do. Or we would just review this during the season, how some of our predictions are working out. So don't worry, this series does not end today, though this is the 32nd episode and kind of end of, let's say, part 1 of this big adventure that I've tried to start with you, and I hope we will all enjoy the ride, and hopefully, no matter what is our Super Bowl, we will reach it. So let's just take a look at what 2023 season was for Cleveland Browns, right? It's kind of weird season to address for Browns, because on one side they made the playoffs, which, like based on Browns history, is quite an achievement, kind of. Also, if Baltimore just didn't win on the cruise and just beat the shit out of 49ers, which was really unexpected, and maybe even drop a game against Dolphins, they could have even won the division. Ended the year 11-6, pretty much essentially 11-5, because last game was pretty much inconsequential and they really did not play to win it. So it's 11-5. But then when playoff came, I'm not saying they were not competitive in the game, because like for first 20 minutes they were in the game, but they ended up losing by 30 points to Houston with a rookie quarterback, with kind of an organization that were unlike them, in a rebuild in a way, and they really kicked their asses. And what is there to say? That year was a lot of good. Whether it's Joe Flacco kind of coming out of retirement story, that he just came in and was, much better by results than he was actually on the field. Like, he was kind of flipping the coin of his deep balls, and they were just coming head, and they didn't come head against the Texans. So it was kind of ugly end. And Myles Garrett has been, that guy is just crazy. I think, despite there was some pushback from Steelers Nation, I think he's absolutely deserved to win Defensive Player of the Year, which he did. And to buy Cleveland Browns history standards, so last 20 years, it was a great season. They had the best defensive player in Myles Garrett, which, you can argue about some other pass rushers, you may argue about Sauce Gardner, but it's kind of like MVP. This usually goes to pass rusher, which Myles Garrett is an elite, creme de la creme, and it's no surprise that he won, and he absolutely deserved it. No. You could ask questions, but in my mind, he is definitely worthy Defensive Player of the Year. But on the other side, when you were entering 2023 season, you have one huge question mark about your roster, and that was Deshaun Watson, right? Because Deshaun Watson is kind of right now 4 years, but before 2023, he was 3 years from actually playing in the NFL properly. I'm not counting that couple of games in 2022 when he was coming back really after almost 3 years not touching a field, being suspended, spending his time with a jury at court. I'm not gonna get deep into his case. I'm not him to go deep. And for better or worse, he's back. I'm not the judge. I'm not gonna be judging him. It seems like a lot of people decided that he kind of got his time served and he can come back. Okay, he's back. But is he back? Is he back to his form from Houston? That was the question, right? Because, okay, it could have been after 3 years, we have not expected, new system, etc., etc. So he was a huge question mark. Also because you've invested super freaking heavily into him. One of the biggest contracts, most fully guaranteed money, and several draft picks to get him. So he was a huge question mark. And post 2023, he still remains a huge question mark because he was out there, he played poorly, and then he got injured. So, I mean, you kind of start to see that question mark in the shade of like a black color in terms of it's probably going to end up bad. Probably the answer is wrong. He probably is not the guy that, he was at Houston, and you made up making a huge mistake. But is it definitely the case? I cannot say that. Like, I am not sure with Deshaun Watson. And that's kind of where, we kind of started the 2024 season. But if you hoped that this is something you will know after 2023, I don't think you do. So, despite you making the playoffs, you kind of did not make any noise there. You have not learned about the biggest question mark in your team, and your window starts to close because this was the year when he had like 20 million cap hit. Now he has 60 million. So it starts to get much, much tighter in terms of money. So you are definitely worse with the situation of Deshaun Watson right now than you were before start of last season. And not only that, last year, one of the most horrific injuries happened to one of the most wholesome, great guy. I obviously talk about Nick Chubb. That's a guy that I'm just absolutely rooting for. He, by all accounts, that what I've heard about him, he is just a great guy. And seeing him suffer was really hard. It's not certainty that he is going to come back. If he is, at what percentage of himself he's going to be back, because he is not the youngest running back, obviously, and it's for running backs, the career is already short, and having such a huge injury, especially it's not his first. It's not like he had one major like 4 or 5 years prior, but it's been some time. But he already had a massive injury. So, man, oh man, I hope he's going to come back. We will see him again. But he is another question mark that you have entering 2024. So, for better or worse, 2023 kind of feels like a disappointment for Browns, because that was a year you prioritize with your cap hits. That was the year where, Deshaun Watson should have been kind of, give him 2022, like post everything that happened. We don't expect him to be excellent. Okay, that's fine. But for 2023, we've paid for this guy freaking a lot. We expect him to be great. This was our year, and, divisional round playoff. That's just not going to cut it, right? So, truth to be told, I think Browns are a disappointment for what happened last year. Again, you can say, okay, but injuries. I get it. I'm not like trying to bang on their coaches that they have done a poor job. They are just disappointment in terms of I expected better, and the fact that it did not happen because of injuries, yes, but arguably it's Nick Chubb's injury that really diminished your chances quite a lot, not Deshaun Watson. So that's kind of an issue when you are paying a quarterback like 52 millions on average, that if he got injured, this is not what really demeanor your season. You can argue that maybe with Joe Flacco they have been actually better than with Deshaun Watson. Like, I'm not saying that's the case, but sure as hell could have looked like that. All right, let's stop with 2023 season. We won't talk about free agency, and let's go to the rundown. Also, something I have not mentioned, for each team we have 3 specific topics. I'm sorry, that's my cat messing with my camera. I mean, like, he just lied behind my monitor. Like, what is this cat thinking? Not cat, kitten. I mean, I really love them, but sometimes they make this job slightly harder than it has to be. All right, let's come back to the point. So for every single team, we have 3 topics that are kind of strictly about them. And for the Browns, it's, are we getting Dr. Watson or Mr. Hyde? Can Nick Chubb come back? And is it kind of now or never for them? All of these topics we either will address, or some of them we actually already addressed as part of some other topics. Just I want to point more lights towards them, or we will take them as a separate topic on during our course. So with no further ado, let's go and check the weaponry, which, as I said, will give you a look at the players' faces on their player cards, so you get to know who they are. So if you want to know them, now is your time to pick up your eyes, put them on your screens and watch. So let's go. Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Joe Flacco. Jameis Winston, Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, David Bell, Cedric Tillman, Jordan Akins, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, and Jerry Jeudy. Next part is we take a look at the finances that each player represents, and we do this here. You can take a look at what their cap hits were before the offseason started, who was actually signed, who wasn't, and here is kind of roster right now. So here on this page you should know what the color means. So blue one means an actual cap hit against the current season salary cap. So for example, for Deshaun Watson, it's just measly 64 millions, and it's going to be 64 millions next year, and most likely next year after that, because almost all of his money are fully guaranteed. So good luck. They really cannot save pretty much anything until let me just check that one on, because that one is really ridiculous. So if they were to release him right now, their dead cap for this season would have been 155 million against cap hit. Oh my god. And they would still have 44 million next year. So they really cannot release him right now. The chances, I would say, I don't think even after this year. It's probably after 25, in which case you still no, it's not, it's never. This is just a full guaranteed contract, and no matter the point you release him, this is the money that will count again his cap hit, This is it, and that's insane. So you are stuck with Deshaun Watson no matter what you do. Then the red number. What is the red number? The red number represents something that's called void years. If the player only has red numbers, it means that it's dead cap hit. They are pretty much the same. Void years are the same with dead cap hit, just void years you call it when the player is still under contract. Dead cap hit is when he is no longer with a team. So what they mean is, in a sense, for Deshaun Watson, for example, for 2027, he's going to count 9 million against the cap hit, despite him being not on the roster. Why is that the case? Because they pushed some money down the line in order to create more cap hit for particular seasons, but this money cannot just go away, so they go in terms of void years into fake years that he's actually no longer on the roster. So let's talk about this quarterback trio, and with Deshaun Watson, I am it's just super hard to grade him. I think it's quite similar to Von Miller, when it's the player he can be, but with Von, it's you have not seen the traits back, With Deshaun Watson, he did not look physically worse than he looked it in Houston. He just didn't look composed. He just wasn't accurate. So it felt like it was not about physical side of the game, which maybe is the case for Von Miller, obviously given his age and given his injury. It was much more about his head. Is it something that he's gonna get back? And if so, good starter is an understatement for him. Like we remember he was borderline top 5 quarterbacks, especially that second to last year in Houston, right? It could also be that the scheme is not a great fit for him. Another possibility. But if for whatever reason he is what he was last year, or like for that couple of games in 2022, good starter is just way too high. Like he played like a decent starter last year. But I have him as a good starter because there is still some resemblance of that past performances. I really struggled with this one. But at this point, he's kind of on the wedge of good starter to decent starter. But I can see him like post week 4. I need to make this great. Either the decent starter or an amazing starter. I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised if he just comes back and he plays his ass off. But I will also not be surprised if he completely sucks. Then, so at this point, this is really 24th, 26th best room in the league, because Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he really did not look apart when he played some games last year. And Jameis Winston, I like the signing, one year, $4 million, which actually they need to edit void years in order to afford him. And I like this signing because he is kind of what Joe Flacco was for this team. He's gonna make a risky plays and just flip a coin. And kind of when you're trying to win, it's probably better to do with a QB that actually can score 40 points. And if he loses the ball, you still are not out of the game because your defense is quite spectacular, right? Then let's talk about running backs, and here I have wrong number for Nick Chubb, because just to add to his wholesomeness, he actually signed a new deal in which he took a massive pay cut. He is not going to count like 16 million against the cap hit. He's only going to count 6 million. He took a massive pay cut. He can work his way, not going there. So he can work his way back up to this money, but they are there through incentive. So obviously, if he comes back and if he is still special, then he probably earns the same that he should. But he kind of puts it to the benefit of the team, to the benefit of the organization, and like, man, oh man, what a guy. Like, I am absolutely rooting for Nick Chubb. What is there to say? I hope he comes back. He's still elite. I have my question mark because that injury was just really horrendous, and he is not young. But, dude, I am so much rooting for you. Like, here, my analytic brain, still functions because I have a question mark next to him. But my fan heart just wishing him absolute best. Just really great player and great guy as well. What do you have behind him? Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong. Ford looked apart last year, but the thing is, looking just apart behind the O-line that we will talk soon enough, it's just not going to cut it. So if Nick Chubb is not what he was, it's a problem for this team. Or if he doesn't come back at all, that could be a huge issue. Then they've made kind of their one big signing, and that was Jerry Jeudy. First of all, they traded him for a 5th round pick with the Broncos, which I was like, okay, he was having 1 year on his deal, and I'm like, all right. It's like he probably won't get re-signed. He's kind of 1 year rental. We tried to go for it. I get it. But then they signed him to 3 years, $52 million deal. And I'm like, what? First of all, I don't think he's worth that kind of money. What? Based on what he did, with Broncos, I mean, you still kind of get the draft pedigree and potential upside, but is he worth 17 million a year? I don't see that. Like, you don't see that in the contract because the contract is from 25 going forward, and there you have the 12 million in void year. So you need to add that to 8, 9, and 13 million in order to get to like that 16 or 17 that he gets on average. And he even might have some money post 28. Let me just check. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a huge fan, to be honest, of this. I do understand that if you hit on his potential upside, then this will feel like a good deal, but from what I've seen from Judy, I don't feel that's likely. And if that's the case, you are kind of stuck with him for a couple of years for quite a decent chunk of money, where you are really stretching the money. And I don't really see him like a guy that should like push you over the edge. Like, he's nice piece, but I much more preferred him as a 1-year rental rather than long-term solution. But maybe he will surprise me. Then you have Elijah Moore. Good enough option there. David Bell, Cedric Tillman. Like, there's quite a nice group behind Amari Cooper, who is your number one, really amazing guy. Amazing player. Like, he is not in that elite tier with guys like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, but he is really in that second tier of wide receivers, guys that a lot of defenses need to scheme up to try to eliminate him, and he just really plays his ass off. And I would say he's very close to like top 10 wide receivers in the league. And kind of good news does not end up there, because you have David Njoku, who is one of the most athletic tight ends in the league. Me ranking him just a very good starter is much more of a testament to him, like, still somehow not cleaning up some of his like easy drops. Like, he just leaves a lot on the table that you would not expect him to do, but he's just exceptional. He was one of the best with forcing missed tackles, not only among tight ends, he was actually the best, but even among wide receivers, which is just exceptional. It is really about give him the ball and let him go to work, which is something they have done like better part of like remainder of the season, like from week 9, week 10. They really tapped into that. Jordan Akins as his backup is someone you definitely live with, but it's not like you have two amazing tight ends, and well, I mean, who does, right? So this group overall comes with two biggest question marks that are, one is health with Nick Chubb, and the other is like, who the hell is Deshaun Watson in terms of quality right now? So it's really hard to rank them. I think their floor is something along the lines of C minus. Their high is A. Their high is A. Their high is A. I'm not gonna, like, even Deshaun Watson at his best and Nick Chubb at his best is probably just an A, because you are still probably missing one exciting piece, but it's really close to A+. So that's the scale we are working with. And as of right now, I will call this group B-, because there are a bunch of playmakers. Deshaun Watson, like, as much as you can pound on him, like, he was not horrendous. He was bad, but he was not horrendous. So he still made some plays, and there is a lot of quality in this weaponry, right? So that's for the weaponry. Now let's go to the offensive line. Again, if you want to meet the guys, now is your option. Are you ready? Let's go. So Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, Jake Conklin, Devon Jones, Ethan Pocic, and Wyatt Teller. Here we were before the offseason started, and here we are right now. Pretty much nothing happened for this group. And entering this season, I think you feel slightly worse about this group that you have last year, but you have one brighter spot from last year. So let's talk about it. Let's start with Joel Bitonio, one of the best guards, if not the best guard in the league. True, great player. He might have had a down year, but I still count him as an elite. Really exceptional guy. By far your best offensive lineman. The second best offensive lineman is also a guard, Wyatt Teller. Again, really solid piece. Top 12 guard to play it safe, top 15 to play it really safe. Really exceptional duo of guards. Then with Ethan Pocic, you actually have a former Seahawks player that we were not happy with. And then he comes here and he's playing really exceptional. So good for him. Kind of unhappy that you have not shown this level with us. Though there is some interesting story that a guy that actually Pocic took his job from, I believe it's Nick Harris if I'm not mistaken that much, that was just now signed with Seahawks. So he kind of earned the starting center job here, but then he got injured. Pocic came, took his job. He was kind of a backup for him, and now he goes to Seattle, so kind of circles closes. I hope he's going to be as good as Ethan is for Cleveland. Fingers crossed for my Seahawks. Then the good news kind of ends there, because Jack Conklin, I still have him as a good starter. Might be a bit low for some people, but he missed pretty much the whole season. It's not like he is a super young player. And let's just face it, he just doesn't wow me as one of like premium right tackles. I think he's a good player, but I don't see him as more than like definitely he's much closer to very good starter rather than to decent starter, but for me he's clear good starter. Really good, nothing to worry about, but maybe for money you are paying for him, right tackle, it might be slight overpay. And then Jedrick Wills, former, I believe, 10th pick of the draft. Really, he kind of had really bad season. Like he only played 9 games, then he got injured. He was bad. It was his worst year of his career. I think he is part of why Bitonio actually grades out slightly poorly than you would expect him to. And definitely he was a guy that you've expected to count on, to improve, to be your anchor as a left tackle. And he just wasn't. And that's a bit of an issue, because like both your tackles are actually your weaker links. And in terms of just like starting tackles, starting left tackles in terms of league, he might be one of the worst, which is again much more of a testament to how great left tackles are in the league, rather than, that Jedrick Wills is like a useless player. I still have him as a decent starter. I don't think he's like a guy you need to replace. He definitely still should have some of the upside coming for him. But what you are thrilled about was a rookie year for Devin Jones, who actually stepped up for the tackle job, and he was very good. I mean, very good might have been an overstatement, but for what you've expected out of like a 4th round pick, he was kind of even better than Jedrick Wills was last year. And I believe he kind of gives you nice 6 piece that if Jedrick Wills is a problem or Jack Conklin gets injured again, he can step up and kind of be there for this O-line. But definitely the expectation that were set up for this O-line before last year, that's like top 3 O-line in the league, I don't think that they have been necessarily met. Still, this O-line is at worst like A-, very good unit. Really, it doesn't seem like you have super weak link. Obviously, it could be Jedrick Wills, Not certain how good Jake Conklin's going to be after recovery, but like it might seem like I took like a real negative tone over this online, but it's just compared to what the expectations were for them, and they just, in my eyes, have not necessarily met them. Still, probably like a top 5 line in the league. Really very good O-line, right? Let's move and let's talk about D-line and linebackers, of course. Again, if you want to meet these guys, now it's your opportunity. You ready? Steady? Let's go. So, Dalvin Tomlinson, Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, Ogbonia Okoronkwo, Alex Wright, Siaki Ika, Isaiah McGuire, Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Sione Takitaki, Anthony Walker Jr., Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush, and Maurice Hurst. Here we are before the offseason started, and pretty much the only guy that they have brought back was Shelby Harris, and that's it. So, where we are right now in terms of this D-line and linebackers, and really good spot. So let's start with Myles Garrett. What is there to say? Absolute beast. I would say he's the best edge rusher in the league, edge player. I feel like it could be a year when, in my eyes, Micah Parsons overtakes him, because I really feel like maybe unlike Myles, he still have some levels that he can tap into, because of he's really actually new to the position. But with Myles Garrett, we are obviously talking Hall of Famer. He's special guy. He's been number 1 edge defender for PFF in last 3 years. So he's just exceptional, and yeah, like you are super happy to have him. You know, with him, you obviously see like his cap hits are only 20 million, which doesn't count. It doesn't seem like that's enough for a player of his caliber. That's because there is almost 40 million just pushed down the line for void years for the cases that he's no longer here, but they will still have to count it against cap hit. What does it mean? We'll talk about it even more later, but it really is. We are trying to win now. This is our window, and it was much more about last year because of cap hit, specifically with Deshaun Watson being on like 20 to maybe even like 15 million compared to 64 this season. So just because Deshaun has 64, they kind of have to push everyone into the future. So that contract really sucks given the quality that Deshaun brings. But behind him, you have Zadarius Smith. What is there to say? Journeyman, kind of veteran, really good player, top 15 edge guys in the league. You know, like having him as your kind of luxury number 2, really scary edge for it. Then you have Ogbonia Okoronkwo as your third option. What is there to say? Like, for a lot of teams, he would be a starter. He would be at worst number 2. He still has some potential perhaps to even evolve. And here is kind of an afterthought behind Myles Garrett, behind Zadarius Smith. So really nice for you. And then Alex Wright, another really nice depth piece. Inside, Dalvin Tomlinson, he had a bit of a down year. He came up like from amazing starter. I would say I would rank him before last year. He's still a very good starter, but he had a bit of a down year. But then you have Maurice Hurst and Shelby Harris, your quite nice duo of veterans. Siaki Ika as a guy that you hope he's going to develop. And alright, maybe you would like someone slightly better than Dalvin Tomlinson as your number 1, or have at least another Dalvin Tomlinson next to him. Well, it's just being really nitpicky. Like, for the money you are spending, especially like Shelby Harris, for the money you are investing, the same with Hurst, like they are really picking up veterans for really nice deals. They understand their roles and they have nice depth. So really very nicely set up group. And then it doesn't end there, because in terms of linebackers, Jeremiah Owusu, top 10, top 15, really good number 1 option. With Jordan Hicks and Devin Bush, you have your number 2, number 3 guy that you are happy with. There's depth. There should not be really an issue with this group. Again, probably not your strength, but when you have Myles Garrett, when you have Zadarius Smith, you clearly have your really huge strengths somewhere else. And overall, this is really close to A+. I will just give it an A because, for A+, it would have to be like someone more special with interior, but definitely A. Really nicely said. Edge is clearly your huge strength. It's not only Myles Garrett. Really nice group. Really nice group. And good luck every offensive line to facing these guys. And you might be talking like, okay, this Cleveland team looks really good, right? Yeah, they do. They are a really good team. They were a really good team last year, and that's kind of says they felt like they were good. They were coming with this Myles Garrett, Denzel Wards of the world, Nick Chubbs, and we just want to give them a special QB that will win us Super Bowls. And they just totally whiffed on Deshaun Watson at this point of time, and they are still really good. Like, imagine if they hit on the trade. Imagine if they had, Lamar Jackson, because there might have been time that Lamar Jackson would have been even less expensive in terms of draft picks and in terms of salary than Deshaun Watson is right now. Okay. Sorry, my cat just fell off from her home where she was lying and doing some weird things, but given the fact that he just ran right past me, he is okay. I will check him out when we finish more, but he should definitely be okay based on the speed he ran into. Alright, let's check the secondary. Again, now is your time to meet the guys if you want to. Yeah, he's okay. Don't worry. He's definitely okay. Are you back? Let's go. Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Martin Emerson, DeAnthony Bell, Cameron Mitchell. Sorry, that gives me flashback from Stargate. Colonel Cam Mitchell, Major Cam Mitchell, in Stargate season 9 and 10. Or is it Atlantis? It's probably Atlantis as well, right? Cam Mitchell. All right, let's move. Ronnie Hickman, Rodney. Oh, okay, so Rodney McKay. Is it Rodney McKay? No, it's probably Rodney McLeod. Sorry, guys. Rewatching Stargate at the moment, so could not miss these names. Let's move to where this group was before the free agency, as you see in this table, and where they are right now. So pretty much no major signings here, and the fact is they did not need to. Let's start with cornerbacks, okay? Denzel Ward, he's not Sauce Gardner, but he is in the second tier. He doesn't grade out as well as you might think for a player of his quality, or at least of his perceived quality by my standards, but it's much more about he really plays against the best of the best. He tries to follow them. He's getting signed up to them. And, sometimes you lose against the best of the best. And also, I feel like for one weird thing for this whole defense that is actually really, really good was they had some weird hiccup games last year when they gave up 30 points, like kind of randomly. So it's definitely something that I'm not sure how it kind of happened, whether they just checked off or am I like too high on them, or what those games were. But some of his worst grades obviously came from this game. But still, I would say Denzel Ward is an amazing starter. I will watch him carefully because as of right now, he's probably closer to just very good starter rather than to elite. but I believe he still is one of the premier corners. Then behind him you have Greg Newsome, who kind of in his shadow actually developed very nicely into very nice second option, really good starter for some teams. He would be their best option, and they would kind of be lucky to have him. With him, you can see a yellow on the cap number. What the yellow means is that this is his 5th-year option that I just don't doubt they will take, because 13.3 million on his type of caliber cornerback is, I think, worth. And he is really special, number 2. Behind them, you have Martin Emerson. For a lot of team, really good number 2 here. He is your number 3 guy. Cam Mitchell, nice depth. Really nice group. It's not the best one. That still goes to Jets, and I would say the scissors kind of went from this to here. I feel like Jets actually earned much more, like based on last season, but I still think this is really nice group in terms of cornerbacks. And in terms of safeties, you are definitely kind of like higher on your backups and maybe lower on your starters than you were before last year, because both Thornhill and Delpit had some games that they had to miss out, and Anthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman had to play, and they both step up quite nicely. Like, as of last year's performance, it really didn't feel like there is huge difference between these guys. Obviously, there's previous years, and both Thornhill and Delpit, in my view, are good starters, and Bell and Hickman are just good backups, but you really feel good about this group. You are missing a start. Not start. You have starters, you have backups, and I feel like if either of them goes down, or if you want to get cheaper eventually, these guys are ready to step up. So again, very nicely, like polished, depth, deep group. What does it mean for the whole secondary? It's an A minus. I will give it a minus for like really lacking another star power for Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward actually not being that totally shut down corner. But it's a minus. It's really nice group. It has depth. It has quality. Definitely something that you should not be worried about. So it really seems like Cleveland is a good team, right? Yeah, they are. But Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb for this year could be a really huge swing factors. So let's now check the coaching staff and the special teams for this. And these might come as some other wild cards. So Ken Dorsey, obviously guy that was like happily run away from Buffalo just to be hired here, like almost, not almost immediately, but like 3 months after that or 2 months after that. I'm like, how much do I trust this? Kind of. Because I really believe that Kevin Stefanski, despite doing a good job, he kind of knows, at least in my mind, that his job is on the line. I feel like they went for it, they want to win, and unless they are at least winning division or like winning at least one playoff game, I believe he could get sacked. Despite him doing quite a nice job, I think he's a really good head coach. It's just when you have Myles Garrett in his prime, Denzel Ward in his prime, Nick Chubb in his prime, you want more. Like, is it your mistake that that they went all in for Deshaun Watson? I mean, probably kind of is, because you probably were part of the decision, right? So I think his job is kind of on the line, and that's why I trust this hire slightly more, because it should mean that he really trusts in him, and I have high opinion on Kevin Stefanski, right? With Jim Schwartz, I think he's a good coordinator, but I might be slightly lower on him than maybe general public would be, because I feel like with the talent he has, some of the games, then they give up like 30 points. Like, I mean, it should really not happen with this talent. I feel like maybe it's, because like Zadarius Smith is kind of his own guy. He sometimes takes the players off and he cannot coach into him. It's like, yeah, I feel like for what type of defense, what type of players you have, the job should be slightly better, in my opinion, but nothing horrendous. I don't think like Jim Schwartz is anything like really bad, but I don't think he's the strength of this team, at least for me. And with special teams, I have them both in ranks. Like Cody Bojorquez is one of the better punters. Hopkins is kind of an average kicker. So not a group that should win you games, but they should be a slight plus for you because of Bojorquez, and they should not be a problem. So that's how deep I do finalizing these groups. I just have them. Is it huge plus, minor plus, completely neutral, slightly minus, or problem? And these guys are slight plus. Now let's talk about the window for the Browns. Like I said, it's now or never. I mean, they could stretch the window by just adding void years in a way like the Saints have done. And it might make sense if Deshaun Watson actually looks great this year. If not, I'm really not sure what they are going to do because they are stuck with him. And if he is horrendous, are you actually like cutting him off? Not because you would save money, because you are just not saving money, but just for, okay, we need to push the reset button, we will eat the dead cap hits, let's just go and start from the scratch, which would mean that this franchise is kind of doomed for next couple of years. Though, maybe not, but probably yes, right? I mean, it's really hard to be competitive where you have 65 million in dead cap hit for 2 years in a row. It's just super hard, man. It just puts you in such a disadvantage compared to other team. So there's pretty much 3 options. Like Deshaun is good or great or special. Let's say great or special. You are living with that. You know, he is actually the reason why you are still fighting, why you are a good team. He makes you better. In that case, you live with his cap hit. You go with it, and you probably have your window still open, though in order to make his cap hit work, you will stretch money down the line, and you will probably need to take 2 mortgages post 2026 to at least even play any players in 2022 season. But it's kind of like we just have a blindfolds on, we look at 3 years, and we just go because we cannot get rid of the contract. He's actually great, and we go with that. Then it's like he's just good, and I'm not sure how we overcome that contract in that case. It's just way too much money in my opinion. And I think if he's just good, you stop post this year, you stop pushing money down the line, you stop screwing up your future, because I would say if he's just good, he puts you in the situation in which you are just going nowhere, and you might get lucky, you might stumble on playoffs, stumble on winning division, but you're most likely not doing anything spectacular. I mean, my plan for 2025 and 2026 in that case is just don't screw the future more. And if he just sucks, you just cut him, you just push the red button. You kind of doing the same thing that you do in case number 2, but you're lowering your floor. You are saying, let's build up a QB from the ground. Let's focus on next year. Probably have better draft picks going forward because we're gonna suck for 2 years. We try to perhaps recoup some dead cap hits towards 25, towards 26, so we are as clean for 27 as we can. But I really think this is the year after which you have to decide what you do. Because either you are happy or you probably will never be happy with that contract, but you are saying it's worth in a way that he actually is a huge upside for us. Then you optimize 25, 26 and you're screwing your future. And if he's not that, you have to stop screwing your future, stop adding money. And you just need to take 2 years when you just eat up that contract and that bad trade. if you continue on this trajectory and you kind of get the meh results while screwing your future, I think you get in similar loop to the Saints, and it's really not a nice one, in my opinion. Okay, with that in mind, they are a really good team right now. If Deshaun Watson is what he was in Houston, if Nick Chubb is what he was pre-injury, I mean, they can win a Super Bowl. The upsides are there, but it's huge ifs, especially in Deshaun Watson's case. And of course, it's Browns, right? So you kind of expect that even if everything goes right, they will find a way to screw themselves up. So can they really win a Super Bowl? I mean, yeah, I guess everybody can. But let's move and let's just take a look at my draft for the Browns. And it's like, this team actually is pretty good. So I'm not drafting a QB because one, I did it last year with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so I really still want to see what I have in him. B, I'm not getting rid of that contract, so unless he absolutely sucks, I'm probably stuck with Deshaun Watson for years to come. So why should I screw another young quarterback behind him? And what is actually my needs? I was like, let's just add pieces to the D-line because we have some veterans there. So that could be a need. And the second part is like, what do we do if Nick Chubb is not back? If he, is not great, if he's not excellent. Let's just draft a running back because we are not drafting with high picks. Like our best pick is 57, so it's really hard to get our hands on anyone premium. So to me, it's much more take a developmental pieces for this free option, for this like free places where I feel like we have veterans or we have potential injury issues, and that's it. It's not like I'm super happy with those drafts, but it just feels like it's kind of the best I can do for the Broncos, not for the Broncos, but for the Browns, because it's really hard to get anyone better that I have right now with 57 pick. I think like it's almost impossible for this team because really it's a stacked team, and it's just for me, it's just filling out the potential holes, the pieces that maybe are slightly older than I would hope so, and hope that they will develop. Overall, really huge season for the Browns. I root for them, for Nick Chubb to get back, to be healthy, and to just show us who he is as a player, because he already showed us who he is as a guy. He's an exceptional. I won't talk about Deshaun Watson in terms of his personality because that has been widely publicized. I don't think there is a reason to continue on that front. And in terms of a player, I will be honest, he was one of the few players before I really got into football that I turned and watched college footballs and I watched Houston Texans because of him. So just like as a fan of what he was on the field for 2020, I would like to see him succeed. In terms of who he is as a person, that's a huge no, and it's a different conversation to be had. It ends. I want to end it within 1 hour, so 5 more seconds. Thank you very much for listening, for tuning in. See you with the draft, and thank you to be part of this Road to Super Bowl journey. It was a pleasure to host you. I am hoping we meet for the second series that will either be post-draft, during trading camp, or during the season. Road to Super Bowl will be back, don't worry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you over draft night. Up to that point, have a nice one. Bye bye.